this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this bracelet, which is a very basic right angle weave 2 needle or 2 thread, whichever you want to refer to it as, project. This is the most basic stitch for right angle weave, which is also referred to as raw, R-A-W. That's just an abbreviation for it. This is a 2 needle method, like I told you. Let me show you what it looks like, with an embellishment on top. So my basic weave, my basic right angle weave is here, and then I just embellish the top with some crystals. We are going to learn how to do this two needle method, and then we will do a tutorial with 1 needle method, and then we will do a tutorial that combines both methods. So this today is just your very basic 2 needle right angle weave. Let's get started. Okay, so for this project, I'm going to use a 6mm round glass pearl, a 4mm bicone crystal, which is a Swarovski, and I believe it's aqua. And then I'm going to be using 11/0s and 8/0s in this project also. These are Toho, and this one is a brown iris, and this one is an antique bronze. They're both round seed beads. Then you'll need a clasp for this project also. I'm using a little toggle clasp for mine, antique bronze. We will also need 2 beading needles. I'm using English beading needles size 10, and you will also need some fire line or nanofill. I'm using an 8-pound fire line today. So let's go ahead and start our weave. Okay, for this project, you're going to want to start by cutting off a piece of thread. You'll cut your fire line by stretching it from fingertip to fingertip while stretching your arms straight out on either side. So you'll start from one arm, stretch it all the way across your chest, and then all the way across the other arm, fingertip to fingertip, and that is called a wingspan. We will start with a wingspan of fire line for this project. You can still add on to even a 2-threaded project by extending your fire line on either side. So you can still do that, but we're just going to start with a wingspan so we don't have 900,000 feet that we have to pull through our beads while we're learning. So to learn a 2 needle right angle weave, like I said, thread your 2 needles, and then we're going to start our project by using the middle of the thread, and then we will use both needles on either side to complete the project. This is the very basic, very simple, very straightforward way to learn right angle weave. I most often use 1 needle technique, which I will be showing you. But just to get familiar with what the weave looks like, and the most basic, simple way to do it is with 2 threads. So what we're going to do now, let me get you a little bit more focused on the bead mat here. We're going to start by putting our clasp on. So now I have cut my thread. I have put needles on either side. Now the thread that you pull through on the other side of your needle should be basically the same length on either side. So once you thread your needle and you pull the length through one side, thread your needle on the other side of the thread and pull your needle through, or your thread through. The thread should be basically the same size, trailing out of both of the needles. That way you have the same amount of thread on either side of your needle, and you'll be more centered in your piece as you start it. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up one of the clasps, one end. I'm going to start with the round end, and I'm going to bring it all the way down to the center of my thread by putting my 2 needles together and just pulling it to the center like so. My 2 needles are together on this end. So now that I have that in the center, I'm going to pick up 1 pearl, and I'm going to go through the pearl with both needles. Now some of your beads you can't run both your needles through, so what you would do is you would just put it down one and then run the other one up through it. So I think with this pearl I can run mine all the way through and bring it down to the end like so. Now we're going to start the weave. With right angle weave, your beads just lay in right angles right next to each other, creating a box. So we're creating little squares with each weave. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay our piece out, separate the needles, have one thread on one side and one thread on the other, hold one in your right hand, one in your left hand, pick up onto your needle, you will pick up an 8/0 seed bead on the right hand side and a 6mm round pearl, and then an 8/0 seed bead. And then on the other side, you will do the same thing, 8/0 seed bead, and then a pearl, and then an 8/0 seed bead, and you will drop them down to the piece. And then you will pick up one pearl with your right hand, bring it down your thread, and then put the left-handed needle through the pearl and bring them down to the center of your piece. If it gets off center at this point, you can still center it. So just put your needles together and slide your piece down your thread until it's centered. And then tighten it back up, like so. Now this first unit looks a little bit different than each unit we will be making hereafter. This one is just our connection. So in each unit we will have 4 beads, but in this one our 4th one is up towards the top to hold our clasping. And then what we're going to do now to secure our clasping is we're going to sew through with each needle. So I have my left needle here right now. It's coming out of the left side of my bead. I'm just going to sew into this 8/0, and then I will sew into the pearl, and then into the 8/0 behind the pearl, and then into the top 8/0 that's right beneath the clasping. And I will pull this thread through here. I will then go through my clasp here. And this is just to secure my clasping. You have to be able to sew through it more than once. One little thread is not going to hold this secure. It's going to break. So then I'm going to go around my clasp into the pearl right beneath it, and then into the 8/0 on this side, and then into the pearl, and then into the 8/0 behind it. And then I will exit through the top pearl here. Now, just because this is holding the clasp, I'm going to use my right thread now and do the exact same thing. So I'm coming out of this bead right here. I'm going to go into the 8/0 seed bead, then I'm going to go into the pearl behind it and into the pearl right underneath the clasp, and just pull my needle through. Then I will go through the clasping. I will go through the pearl again, the 8/0 seed bead right underneath it, and then the pearl underneath that 8/0 seed bead. And all I'm doing is just in the 8/0 seed bead right underneath the pearl, right there. And then we will go through this pearl again. What I'm doing is just reinforcing everything, just sewing through what I've already got on my thread. Now I've got my clasping and I'm ready to start my weave. With right angle weave, you will always have 4 main beads. The 8/0 seed bead in this weave that I'm doing today is just to cover the thread and just make the weave a little bit bigger and have more presence. The main beads that I'm going to use, that I'm going to look at in my right angle weave, are my 6mm rounds. So I will always have 4 6mm rounds in each unit. So that way I know that as I'm doing this, how many beads I need to add on what thread so that I can continue my weave. So we're coming out of this bead right here, the 6mm round. We have a thread on either side of the bead. We are going to then pick up an 8/0 seed bead and then a 6mm round on one thread. And then we'll pick up an 8/0 seed bead. These 8/0s, like I said, are just to cover the thread as we sew around. Pick up an 8/0 on the left hand, pick up a purl, and pick up an 8/0. And we're going to drop these down. Now in our weave, this is going to be our first unit. 1, 2, 3 purls. We are always going to be using the previous bead, the last one on the top in each unit, to count as one of our beads in the next unit. So we have 3 of our main beads. We know we need 4, and in the 4th we need to join these together. So we will pick up one on our right hand needle or left. It doesn't really matter. Pick it up, slide it down to the thread, and then slide your other needle, which in my case is the left hand, through the bead also. Now your threads are crisscrossing, and you will drag them down very gently and pull it together like this. And this is how you will make your weave. Now you have 4 beads lying at right angles. So here's one here, one here. That's a right angle right there. One here, one here. That's a right angle. That's why it's called right angle weave. Right in the middle, you will see, even though these are round beads, you have created a little box. Each box has a side on 4 sides. You'll always have walls on 4 sides here, and that will be the inside of your box. So then we will begin again. We will pick up 1 8/0 seed bead, 1 purl, 1 8/0 seed bead, 1 purl, 1 8/0 seed bead on each needle. So this is what you will have on each needle. Drop them down to your piece. And now you can see you have 3 of your main beads. Now we need to add the 4th. So we will pick up 1 bead, one of our 6mm beads, bring it down, bring the other needle through the bead, crisscross your threads, and drag it down. Just like so. Let's do that again. Let's pick up 1 8/0 seed bead, 1 purl, and then 1 more 8/0 seed bead, then an 8/0 seed bead, a purl, and an 8/0 seed bead. So each side has the same thing on it here. We're going to drop them down to the piece. Then we will pick up 1 more of our main beads, because we know we need 4 of them to create a unit. Drag that bead down, put your other needle inside of the bead, crisscrossing the threads, and pull. Let's do 1 more, and then we'll do this to length, and then I will show you how to embellish this to make it a little bit prettier. So now we're going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead. We're going to pick up a purl and an 8/0 seed bead on one of our needles. This is my right needle. Then we'll pick up an 8/0 seed bead, a purl, and an 8/0 seed bead, like so. Drop them down. So in essence, there will always be your main beads on your thread, and then the bead that joins you will cross through. Right angle weave can be done in many different ways. You can use all small beads, a series of 6 of them or 8 of them. It depends on how you want to do it. 2 beads on either side for each wall, or 3 beads on each side for each wall. You can create all kinds of different ways of making right angle weave units. As long as your beads end up in a square like so, even on each side, laying at right angles, it is a right angle weave. And we will do some of the different sizes of beads and some of the different more complicated weaves with right angle weave as we move through. This is the very simplest way, and like I said earlier, I do not often ever use 2 needles. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I'll use 1 needle. So we will go through that also with right angle weave. So we're going to do 1 more unit. I am picking up onto my needles my 8/0s and my pearls on both needles. Like so, and I'm going to drop them down. And again, we're going to pick up last one, bring it down, and go through it. This is your most basic way to do a right angle weave. Now you do not have to have the 8/0s in between the beads either. You can do this with just your basic pearls, but I wanted to space them apart a little bit, give the bracelet a little bit more presence on the wrist, a little bit bigger, bolder look, and I wanted to cover my thread. If you want it to be a little smaller, use an 11/0 between each bead on your thread. That will work just fine. Or don't use anything in between each bead. That's fine too. Experiment with it. Get to the point to where you're being creative with it. Different types of beads, different sizes. It's a very forgiving, very basic stitch that you can do a million different ways. So once you know the technique of how to crisscross through that 4th bead and how to put your clasp on, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want with this. So we're going to finish this project off camera, well, at least the length. We are going to go to length, so we're going to continue doing this weave until we have 12 units, counting the unit that starts with your clasping here. Now the way you're going to count these, let's get close, is you will count the little box in the middle, the little space. But because we have this little unit with our clasping, we're going to count that as a unit too. So we'll just count these 2 first pearls right here as 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, 5 units, 6 units, 7 units, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 12. So once you have counted your units, or you have measured it. Now I want mine to be a 7-inch bracelet. So since I already have the clasping on this end, this will really help me figure out what length I want. Usually you will leave 1.5 to 2 inches short depending upon the size of your clasping. So I want my bracelet to be 7 inches. I know that the clasping on this side from this first pearl to the end is 1 inch. So I have made mine just right at 6 inches right here, so that as I make my last unit and put my clasp on, I will have right at about a 7-inch bracelet. Now, if you want to make a smaller bracelet, you will make the amount of units that goes to, let's say you want to make a 6-inch, you will make the amount of units that goes to 5, and then you will stop and you'll do the last unit that we are going to do right now. So if you want to make it bigger, then you'll make more units until you get to the length that is 1 inch short of where you want your bracelet to end up. So I have made my 12 units, counting my clasping unit, and now I'm going to make a clasping unit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead, a pearl, an 8/0 on one thread, and then on the other thread, my left thread. The first one was my right thread. It doesn't really truly matter if you're left-handed, just do the same thing. bring them down. And then this time, instead of crossing through my third purl, I'm going to pick it up, bring it down, and I'm going to put both needles through it straight on the same side. So I'm coming through this way. I just went straight through. Now instead of crisscrossing through it by going this way through with my second needle, I'm just going to go straight up through the purl on the same side that I went through originally with my first needle. So I'm just going to bring this down like so and straighten it out. Now you can see that this unit is the same as this unit over here. And then we are going to go through the second half of our clasp. So let me get this arranged. Make sure your tension is good. By that I mean pull on your threads, make sure there's no slack, that none of your beads are wobbly or showing a lot of thread in between them, and then pick up your clasp. I'm using my right thread. I'm going to go through the clasp, and then I'm going to go back down through it with my right thread. I'm going to go back down through the purl, straight through the first one we put on, and then I'll go through the 8/0 and I'll go through the purl on this side. And I will pull it down, pull it through, and bring my clasping down to my unit. Now your unit is going to get loose and sloppy, so you have to straighten it out as you do this. Then we are going to go through this 8/0 seed bead. We're coming out of this purl right here. We're going to go through this 8/0 and then through the bottom purl here, the one we attached this unit to, and pull. I'm going to turn it slightly, and I'm going to go through this 8/0 here and the 8/0 behind the purl. I'm going to go through the 8/0, the purl, and the 8/0 behind it, and pull. And then I'm going to come up. I just will pull on both of my threads to tighten things up. Then I'm going to go through this purl on the top and back up through my clasp, around my clasp, and back into the purl here. Down through the 8/0 seed bead here, through this purl on the side here, and pull. Now my thread on my needle is doubled, so I need to pull more thread out for myself. So I'm just going to pull on my needle and make sure that my thread, the doubled part, doesn't go through my beads, extending my thread with the reserve I left on my needle. Now I'm still coming out of the top bead with this needle. I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to go up through the clasp. Then I'll go back down through the first purl right underneath the clasp. Make sure you don't pull it too tightly here because you need to get between the purl and the clasping. Go through that top purl, go through the 8/0 on this side, go through the purl underneath it. Again, I'm going to extend my thread on this side by pulling my needle through. Then I'm going to go into this 8/0, into the purl behind it, like so. I'm just sewing around the entire unit with both threads so that I can reinforce my clasping. Then I'm going to go back up through the purl, into the clasp, back down through the top purl, and into the 8/0 behind it and the purl behind it, and pull. Now let me turn it this way so you can see it well. This is what you should have. You should have your clasp on securely, just arrange it so it's nice and neat, and then you have two threads coming out of the two purls, like so. Now we are going to do an embellishment over the top of this, because this is a really pretty bracelet as is. You could stop here, you could tie a couple knots and stop here if you wanted to and have this pretty little pearl bracelet like this. Or you can do an embellishment. An embellishment is anything you add to your basic weave on top or to the side or whatever to decorate it up and make it pretty. We're going to put some pearls on top of, or not pearls, excuse me, some crystals on top of our pearls. Now we're coming out of these two bottom beads. I want to start my embellishment here on this unit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this 8/0 on this side with my right needle and poke through this top pearl here. Right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my left needle. I'm going to go through this 8/0 here. Let's get closer. And then I'm going to go through the pearl here. Now both of my needles are coming out of this pearl right here, the unit underneath the clasping unit. Now we are going to start a little embellishment over the top of each unit to make it prettier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 2 11/0s on one needle, 2 11/0s on the other needle, like so. Then I'm going to pick up a crystal on one needle and a crystal on the other needle, like this. I'm going to drop these down to my unit. Then I'm going to pick up 1 11/0 with my right needle. I'm going to bring it down to the threaded part, and then I'm going to go through, crisscrossing the needles, like so, through the 11/0. And I'm going to pull my thread through and draw these crystals over the top of my pearls, like so. Now I need to do the other half of this unit so that it meets in this pearl here. So I will do the same thing, only backwards. I'll pick up a crystal first, then I'll pick up 2 11/0 seed beads on one needle. Then I will pick up a crystal first on the second needle, and 2 11/0 seed beads onto that needle, like so. Now I'm going to put down one needle and drop this down on my right hand side, and I'm going to go through the bead just across from the one I attached to. So I attached to this one, now I'm going to go through this one, and I'm just going to go through the same side that my needle is on and pull this down over the top and tangle it. There we go. Come on, untwist. Boy, that really twisted. There we go. Maybe. There. Like so. Now, I'm going to pick up the other needle with my crystal and my 2 11/0s on it, like so. Drop it down, and I will come back through the same pearl on the side where my needle is, on this side, and pull. And draw those crystals over the top of the unit like so. And now we have a nice little embellished unit. We're going to do that again. We're going to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads, a crystal, and drop it down. Then 2 11/0 seed beads and a crystal on the other needle, and drop it down. And then we're going to pick up 1 11/0 seed bead on the right needle, draw it down to the threaded area, go through the 11/0, crisscrossing your needles and your thread like so, and pull it down. Draw it together like so. Now let's get a little closer for just a shot or two, and then let's pick up the other half of the embellishment backwards. So we'll pick up the crystal first, then 2 11-0s on the right needle. And then we will take this needle and go through the opposite bead of the one we're attaching to. So we're attaching to this one, we're going to go directly opposite it and go through the same side that our needle is on. So my needle on this side, I will go through this side of the pearl. And I will draw this down. And then I will pick up my other needle, my left hand needle, and I will pick up the crystal first and then 2 11-0s. Drop them down, and then I will go through the same pearl I just went through on this side. So basically I'm crisscrossing through the pearl that I'm attaching to. And pull these down, like so. And then we will do that one more time on camera, and then we will do the entire length of the necklace off camera. So, or I'm not necklace, bracelet. I'm not quite here, guys, sorry. Pick up 2 11-0 seed beads and a crystal on your right thread. Drop it down. Pick up 2 11-0 seed beads on your left needle and a crystal. I'm not very good with my left hand, have to switch over here. There we go. And drop it down. Then with your right needle, pick up an 11-0 seed bead. Bring the 11-0 down to the thread area. Slide your other needle through it, like so. Draw your 2 threads crisscrossing and draw your crystals together, like so. Then pick up a crystal and 2 11-0 seed beads with your right thread. You're coming out here with your right thread, and then go into the pearl opposite the one you're attaching to. Pull the needle through, like so, and then pick up your left thread, pick up a crystal and 2 11-0 seed beads, like so, and then go into this side right here. Bring it down. Sorry, my TV is kind of loud. I have to turn that down. And then we'll just continue doing this embellishment the entire length of the bracelet, and you will see how pretty that's turning out to be. So you can take a very basic stitch and make it much prettier by just adding a little embellishment on top. So let's go ahead and make the entire length of the bracelet with embellishment until you get to this very last unit here, not the clasping unit, but this one here, and we will be back. Okay, so I have finished my entire embellishment, putting the crystals on all the way to the other end of the bracelet. I am now coming out with both of my needles out of this last pearl before my clasping unit. So I have one needle on this side, one needle on this side. I'm going to pick up one needle. This happens to be my right needle. I'm going to tighten everything by tugging on a little bit, and I'm going to sew up through this 8-0 and this pearl and this 8-0 right here. We're going to tie a knot on the thread bridge. The thread bridge is the thread between beads that you previously put in to put them together. So I have a little piece of thread between this 8-0 and this pearl. I'm going to go underneath that little piece of thread with my needle, like so, just like that. I'm going to pull it up until my thread makes a little loop, and then I'm going to put my needle through the loop and pull this knot down between the beads. So I'm up here. If your thread slips, just arrange it to where the loop is up between the beads where you want it to go, and draw your knot down. Now I'm going to go up through the bead with my clasp on it, I'm going to go through the clasp again, and then I'm going to go down through the bead with the clasp on it one more time. Then I'm going to sew into this 8/0 here and this pearl, and I'm going to grab one more knot between these two beads. So I'll just slide my needle underneath, grab that thread that's between the beads, the thread bridge, draw it down carefully, push my needle through, and draw my knot down, tighten it. I'll go through this 8/0 now, and I will go through this pearl, and here I'm going to cut my thread just a little bit away from the beads, like so, and then I'm going to burn it down. But first, before I burn this down with my lighter, just to end the thread, I'm going to do the other side and tie it off so that I don't block any of the beads I might pass through. Let me back off a little bit because I'm not sure I stayed in frame. So let's do this side too so that you can see exactly what I did in case I was out of frame. So I'm coming out of this bead right here on this side with my second needle. I'm going to go up into the 8/0 and the pearl above it. I'm now going to grab a knot by reaching underneath the piece, grabbing the piece of thread that's holding the beads together, and then I'm going to go through the loop I've just created. Pull my knot down, and see here, I accidentally got my thread in the wrong spot. So now I have to loosen that. So look at it as you're bringing it down, because if you bring it down all the way tightly, then you can't fix it. But because I didn't bring it all the way down tightly, I can untie this knot. And I'm just going to leave this in here so you can see if you make a mistake, you can correct it. I'll just pull this through here, like so. Now I'm going to do this again without actually crossing over my beads. I want to go between these two beads right here. Go through my loop. I'm holding my thumb there so that my thread doesn't move away, and pull my knot down. I'm going to do that one more time because I'm not sure that that actually took. So I'm going to go into the thread bridge and pull my knot down, just like that. Then I'm going to go up into the 8/0 and the pearl above it, which is starting to get a little thread tight because I've gone through it so many times. Go up through this pearl, like so. Pull it through, go through my clasp. I'm going to turn this so that I can get it better to my hand here. And I'm coming through the clasp, so I'm just going to go back through the pearl one more time. If it gets really tight, you don't necessarily have to come up through the pearl. You can sew through the unit without coming through this pearl, but if it gets really tight, just push it through with a pair of flat nose or chain nose pliers, pull it through, and then go through another couple of beads. This is where my previous tail was. I'm going to move it out of my way, and I'm going to grab a knot right here. Grab that thread bridge, and then go through my loop, pull it down between the beads, like so. Now I'm going to go through this 8/0 and this pearl just to get my thread on the other side of the pearl, away from my other tail, like this. Then I'm going to cut off this tail also, like so. And then, get you a little closer so you can see the threads. I have a thread here and a thread here. I'm just going to very lightly just get my lighter close to it and burn those down and tuck them into my beads. So I'll take my needle and I'll just tuck it down like so, and then I'll do it on this side also. This creates another knot. You could use a thread burner, but I'm not sure it blobs it as well as a lighter, so I've always used a lighter. It's because it creates another knot in your thread that won't go through your beads as easily because it has a blob at the end. So let's look and see what we have done here. Clear my desk a little. Straighten it up a little and back off, and this is the bracelet we have. Let's see our length here. So I'm going to place it here and here, and it's just a little over 7 inches because the clasp, you know, you have a little bit more on that side, but it is right at 7 inches. And I'll call about a 7 1/4. And then let me put it on my wrist so you can see what that looks like on the wrist. And let's turn it so you can see the clasping. There's the clasp. And it's a very cute, very little basic, quick introduction to right angle weave. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you later.